Welcome to the second episode of a new interviewing series we are calling Contractor Connect. The intent of this series is to highlight the many supportive and innovative defense contractors and organizations that are sitting outside of the Naval Support Activity Center, Crane, and what we call WestGate Crane Technology Park. My name is Samantha Nelson, and I'm the program manager for Purdue at WestGate, and I'm with the team that manages the WestGate Academy. With this series, the hope is to showcase the many supporters of the Crane Naval Base that are sitting in the WestGate Crane Technology Park and allow their stories to be told of who they are and what they do to support defense ecosystem. It is also meant to build an excitement of what is happening in the middle of cornfields to help persuade talent in the workforce to continue their growth and innovation right here in Southern Indiana. Just for some context, the WestGate Crane Technology Park was established in 2005 and is the only tri-county tech park that encompasses parts of Davies, Greene, and Martin counties in south central Indiana. We are located just a mile outside the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane Naval Base. It has grown steadily, attracting over 50 defense-related contractors, almost 1,000 employees, with over $86 million in total salaries, with an average individual salary of $84,000. Today it is my pleasure to introduce you to Bryant Niehoff. He was the former Davies County Economic Development Director and is now tasked with being the CEO of a newly founded organization known as USTF, Uplands Science Technology Foundation. Welcome, Bryant, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Absolutely. It's good to be here.
So, Bryant, tell us a little bit about, before we get into USTF, tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in Southern Indiana, because you're not from the area, but your wife is?
That's right. Correct? Yeah. So I'm actually originally from Rushville, Indiana. So it's about an hour's drive southeast of Indianapolis. So that's home for me. Was home, right? So my family's there, my parents, my two sisters, an older sister, younger sister.
Everybody's still there.
Everybody's still there. Yep. And met my now wife at Ball State University, where we both went to school. And she's from Jasper, Indiana, so not too far from here. And opportunity came up through some of my connections with Davies County, and that's how we ended up down here at the end of 2018.
2018, okay, so not too long ago.
Not too long ago.
So when you were in Rushville, what was your role in Rushville?
Yeah, so like I said, born and raised there, went to Ball State, and my background is in community planning, so urban planning and development. Have kind of a focus, specialization on the real estate development side of things. So my very first job right out of college, and actually while I was still finishing up my bachelor's degree, was as the planning director in Rushville and Rush County. So I was 22 years old.
Working for the city of Rushville.
Yeah, so actually working for both the city and the county.
Okay.
It was a joint planning and zoning office. So did that for about a year, trying to figure things out, right? And I was really fortunate to be a very small part of the team led by Mayor Pavey in Rushville, still mayor there, that really I would say was kind of at the front end of Rushville becoming the community it is today, which is a vibrant little, rural oasis of sorts, right? In South Central Indiana. So they were designated a stellar community that year, and I was fortunate enough to be part of that team. So it was really neat just to see that, really kind of like I said, the start of that transformation of my hometown.
Sure. And the Stellar Grant is something they continue to do now, or?
Yeah.
So just real quickly, the Stellar Grant was a grant that was given out of the state to so many counties or so many cities?
Yeah, so it's evolved over the years, So like I would say, in our area, a couple of stellar communities would have been like Bedford was a stellar community.
Huntingburg
right. As well. Yeah.
That's why I mentioned it, because there's a couple of local counties or cities that were given the Stellar Grant, which was.
Oh gosh, it was.
$6 million.
Yeah, it's kind of evolved over the years, but basically what it did is it it put these communities in a special designation to compete for state funds, whether it's through like NDOT or for roads projects or DNR through like trails projects, housing housing projects, quality of life kinds of things. So yeah, it ended up being millions of dollars that were then kind of a shot in the arm to these communities and helped make Huntingburg, downtown Huntingburg, what it is today, Bedford, and the same for Rushville and many more.
Congratulations on that. I think that's a big feat. That's something to be proud of.
Well, it's neat. Just like I said, I mean, all the credit goes to Mayor Pavey and John McCain. Brian Sheehan, and all these folks. But like, I just feel like it was neat being, pretty young, right out of college, and like that being one of my first experiences, like learning from these amazing folks who, turned my hometown around to where when I was growing up there, not dissimilar to how anyone feels, right? It's just, you can't wait to get out of town. But now when I come home, with my kids now, my wife, it's like, man, this is a pretty cool place. Yeah. There's neat stuff to do here.
So that's exciting. Yeah. So you became the Davies County Economic Development Director, right? Is that correct title?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you were there for how long?
Oh, it's about 5 years. Yeah. So we moved down here in 2018. And took over in this role 23. So yeah.
As the sole person.
Yeah.
In this role, correct?
At the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you have someone that is with you,
Yeah.
Shay Jones, correct?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's with you to help you, but you've been doing this on your own for a couple years, and we'll get into it a little bit. But there's a lot that you've accomplished and a lot of challenges that you've had during the course of a couple of years. So.
Yeah.
And again, just for some context for some of the people that don't know, like I said, we are in a technology park, and from the Indiana Business Journal, it says there are 26 certified tech parks in the state of Indiana, and 23 are currently active. So that was based on 2023 data. So something may have changed in between. But can you just give us an indication as to what were the motivations behind establishing this park, this certified tech park, that had to be right outside of the Navy base?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you gave a great, introduction at the beginning here, just of like, the timeline, when it started, and like, really creating this, research environment, economic development, massive economic development project, right, between Davies, Greene, and Martin counties out of nothing, right, out of cornfields, out of, a brownfield grant for some former housing for the installation, right, in Crane Village. So, no, I wasn't around back then, right? But to my knowledge and the folks that I've gotten acquainted with, my understanding is that around 2005, there was the BRAC, a round of BRAC, and Crane, to my knowledge at the time, was very different than what it is today, right? I think folks had shared with me, or what I've heard anecdotally, is that they were kind of known as the body shop for the Navy, right, for the fleet, and they
kind of a secret.
Kind of a secret, yeah, that's exactly right. Like I didn't, I kind of ashamed to admit this, but I didn't know about Crane until I was in college, right? Until I met someone at Ball State whose dad worked at Crane, and that, so very different. And at the time, there were a variety of things that BRAC takes a look at when that's when the federal government's going through that process. But two of the biggest things I would say that stood out from a state and local regional support standpoint were the technology park, that there wasn't a research park just outside or closely affiliated with the federal lab, right? And then it wasn't really easy to get to at the time, is the way I understand it, right? I've only known the area and what the era.
Transporting anything,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Moving anything in and out of the installation. So I've only known the era of I-69 before. I can't imagine how tough it was to get down here. So really around that time is when the three counties, Davies, Greene, and Martin counties, came together and had an opportunity, saw an opportunity, and really cast a vision for what we see today, and was the bedrock, the foundation for the vision in the master plan back in, it was completed in 2020, that really our organization was created to move that forward, to advance. Yeah.
So for people that don't know, there's obviously quite a bit of complexity involved with tech parks. Um, we are a little more complex than others because, like he was mentioning, we are comprised of 3 different counties. We're the only tri-county tech park, I think, in the state of Indiana. That meant that there had to be a lot of working together amongst the counties, which sometimes is a little challenging, is a little difficult. So hence the reason, I guess, why USTF came up. So we're in 2025 right now. It was started in 2005 when everything was kind of organized. But starting 2 years ago, when I think there was some larger growth opportunity, larger opportunity for the counties to continually work together. So my understanding, that's kind of where USTF was born out of. And so tell us a little bit about now what USTF does and why their organization was needed.
Sure.
For what we're currently doing. So.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so USTF was officially created 2021, so the end of 2021. So really right after the master plan was complete for WestGate. So going back a few years, so we, being the Uplands Science Technology Foundation, really, I would say evolved out of the Regional Opportunities Initiative, or ROI, right? So they led up the Indiana Uplands brand for the 11 county region that came together for ROI's initial investment, the Lilly Endowment's initial investment in ROI, related to workforce, quality of place, and really focusing on those 3 key sectors within our region, right? So the certainly national security and defense, advanced manufacturing, and the life sciences, right? So as part of that process, and as part of ROI's charge to advance those 3 core pillars, core initiatives, one of those items under the quality of life pillar was really hit on all 3 to a certain degree, was WestGate Crane, right? Hey, I think a lot of folks recognized that WestGate had so much potential, right? And you've been here and have seen WestGate evolve over the years, that had so much potential with being just outside the 3rd largest naval installation in the world, Indiana's only federal laboratory, right? And not to mention, just the amazing work that these folks are doing, right? These scientists and engineers and leaders on the installation supporting our warfighter. And so folks recognize that, certainly here, we've always known that, but I think we really started to catch the attention of folks up in the Indianapolis area. And ROI led up the master planning effort to really, help WestGate reach that full potential. Taking a look at some of those peer communities and research parks that we've aspired to over the years. So think, Cummings Research Park down in, the Huntsville, Alabama area with Redstone Arsenal, Sandia Science and Technology Park, Research Triangle Park in that Raleigh-Durham area, the Dayton area surrounding Wright Pat, right? So those are some of those key areas. That master plan was completed, but then we all looked around each other and said, hey, we still don't necessarily have kind of a ringleader, a quarterback of sorts, right? Like an organization that is going to be tasked, and it's going to be their only job to, eat, breathe, and sleep, think WestGate all the time, right? And that's where USTF was really established, taking a look at those peer research parks, at that master plan, saying, what's different with WestGate compared to some of those peer communities is that there wasn't that clear entity at the center that was driving all of that, right? You guys have been involved here, for years and play just a phenomenal role. But, really the academy is kind of where that jurisdiction, certainly the programming and whatnot, but from an active, business recruitment, economic development, land development standpoint.
So there's kind of an ambiguous, if I want to build a building, or if I need workforce or talent, or if I need any other resource from a county, who do I go to? And it's kind of, no one really knew where to go. And just to give again, a little bit more context, is that everybody in the tech park owns their own properties, or other people own their own properties. It's not as if one entity owns the tech park itself. There is multiple people, multiple developers, multiple owners, multiple tenants and leases, so leaseholders. So that plays into the complexity of who do I go to when I need a tax abatement? Who do I go to when I need this resource? So USTF is becoming that, and you call yourselves manager.
Yeah.
I heard kind of what
yeah,
I
like
liked it.
No, yeah, like the managing and operating partner for the technology park, right? So our organizations obviously work together a lot because I'm constantly bugging you for meeting space and in this facility here, and but yeah, we're more of that managing, operating, development partner for the tech park as a whole. Yeah.
So knowing that there's the 3 counties to deal with, and you basically are the economic development director for WestGate Crane Technology Park, right? So what are some of the things that make this, and we kind of mentioned a couple of them, but what are some of the things that makes this tech park particularly more challenging than say a Purdue Research Foundation park?
Yeah, I wouldn't say. Well, it would just. There are challenges, right, with developing any park. That's for sure. I mean, just in finding the right mix of industries and, making sure you're targeting the right industries, right, is maybe a better way of saying it. But, and the market's got to work, right? So I would say a few things, like some of the challenges that we face at WestGate that would be different than, like, great example with the Discovery Park District, right, in the Purdue Research Park area, would be, one, it's just incredibly rural, right? So when you're looking, just last week, we had the Kratos groundbreaking, right, for their new Indiana Payload Integration Facility, or IPIF, I think, IPIF, right? IPIF. So it's going to be phenomenal. But, Kratos, they're headquartered out of San Diego, California, right? They've got a major presence in Huntsville, these more metropolitan areas. So, it's a fun experience of mine, going and talking with these folks and getting their context of, like, well, hey, where do we go to eat? Well, we're working on that. I mean, because it's so incredibly rural, like you said, coming out of cornfields. So I think that's one of our bigger challenges, is just sharing that to the world, that we have these amazing opportunities with WestGate Crane and the research potential and the resources that they offer, the amazing work they're doing. But, that this is a place to invest in and that it's worthwhile, even though we don't have, at least at this time, those support services that I think a lot of folks expect when they're looking at a dynamic research park environment.
And how big is the tech park? And how many more developable or areas of building and infrastructure that can take place?
Yeah. So it's funny because we were talking about this earlier. So the 3 counties came together all at around the same time, 2005, 2006 timeframe, but at different times, and drew up their boundaries for the parks. They're all a little bit different, right? Like Davies County, where we're sitting, WestGate Academy, they excluded, all residential properties, right, within the park. And they really only, for the most part, included property that they had control over or knew that they would, where it's kind of in the works. Greene County, very different approach, kind of drew a big, swath of land within the park. Some of it, had plans to be or was controlled by the county. Some of it, and a lot of it, was not, right? It's more private in nature. And then Martin County took a much different approach than the other two, with just about, I want to say, like 20, 25 acres, right? That has really, for the most part, to this day, been built out, right? I mean, there's just a couple other sites left within the park, within Martin County's side of the park, excuse me. So, in total, I want to say there's over 1,000 acres within the tech park proper. In the master plan, we say about 750 that could be developed. But what I say, on a regular basis, in terms of like publicly controlled property that we work with, Davies County, Greene County, to a lesser extent Martin, just because they don't have any other publicly controlled property within the park. It's about 350 acres. So a lot of numbers there. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I get it. No, I thought it was very, very well understood. So let's back up a minute to we talked about ROI and you talked about Lilly Endowment. So this all really, and correct me if I'm wrong, started with the Lilly Endowment.
Yeah.
Providing money, and then did ROI take over that financial piece of it, and then they kind of figured out what the plan might look like, and
Yeah.
what you talked about the master plan 2020. So from that plan, and you can go on to Uplands, you can go onto your website to see that plan, or can you go on? Okay.
Yeah. If you go to westgatecrane.org, so just to let's say about a year ago, right? I think we officially, we codified our relationship with the WestGate Authority, more that governing body for the park, right? Appointed by the 3 counties to market the technology park as a whole. So that's where really, USTF doesn't have a separate site. We just talk about the organization there. But yeah, you can find the master plan.
You can go on the website and find out more about what that master plan looks like. But can you tell us from that master plan, and I know from master plans, just from experience, they change and reiterate throughout the whole course of developing, but has there items out of that plan that have been implemented? And if so, what are they? And then what other things are potentially going to be implemented that we can look forward to?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, so I mean, I think one, if you haven't checked out the master plan, I know you've seen it, but so for the viewers here, if you haven't looked at it, I'd encourage you to. It's really neat, especially, if you're in the defense space, just to see that vision, right? Whether you're here in the park, whether you're kicking around the idea of being in the park, right, and engaging with Crane further, take a look at that, because that's what we're striving for, and what me and my team, spend every day working to advance. So I would say, what that master plan articulates versus what's here are 2 very different things, right? What's been implemented, I would say a couple of items. One is more on that organizational side. You and I were talking about that earlier today, right? It's just, what's so much of the day-to-day in these earlier stages of USTF, right? I mean, really just for the past year and a half, 2 years, I've had a full-time, employee starting up this new effort, that in these early stages, it's been more about, okay, how do we work with the 3 counties, work with the WestGate Authority, work with our stakeholders, ROI, certainly the installation and its key tenants, NSWC, CAAA, our university partners, the IEDC, our many stakeholders. How do we work with those folks to pull together a system that, when we're moving it forward, it's firing on all cylinders, right? It's a well-oiled machine. Like, that's what we're working towards at WestGate. So that's tougher to articulate, one, in a master plan, which is typically more like physical in nature, right? And 2, if you're, the general public, that's hard to see, right? It's hard to see that. So I think that's it. WestGate, at its core, is one of the best examples of regionalism I've seen in my career, right? Just a great example and an experiment of that. So I would say that's one of the biggest things, which, isn't the fun stuff, but I would say moving forward into more of the fun stuff of what we're starting to see is we have, the preliminary plans, right, for a new park within the technology park. A park within a park is, funny enough, one of the central themes of the master plan. We live in a beautiful part of Indiana, right? The hills and just the forestry, and it's a beautiful area. So how do we blend the beauty of the Uplands region with the amazing defense tech work that our tenants are doing, that the installation is doing? And that's at the core of that master plan. So we're in early stages for, a pretty significant regional park to be built. It'll take some time to get that, to where we're able to enjoy it, but it's exciting to see some of the funding coming together for that and some of the plans coming together. So
that's exciting. That's exciting. Um, so, being as you have been the only employee for a while, and thank goodness you have someone else now that's in place with you, and you kind of talk about you're having to deal with all of these different types of stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
What is a day in the life of a
Oh,
CEO of USTF? I mean, are you speaking with economic development directors all the time? Are you having to go to legislature? I mean, all the things, you kind of answered a little bit about it, that you're kind of dealing with those types of situations every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. It's a great question. I would say, I mean, every day's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Every day's different. And I would say, I mean, just like, clue into today, and today's been a relatively quiet day,
Yes.
but it's on the phone with, an investor who is looking at a new building within the park, right? And it's actually relatively new. It's one that's been on the radar screen, has kind of fallen off, right? As typical, prospects do. They follow every, set of timelines, right? So it's kind of fallen off and came back, and they're, looking to break ground here pretty soon. And then, my mind goes to some contractors that we know of in the area that are looking for space, right? And how can we help make that connection? And, that developer that I was talking with, they were thrilled, right? Because they're nearby in the area, but they're not right here where they see on a day-to-day basis, what the level of interest that like you and I see, right? With folks coming into the academy and folks calling into our office. So that was a fun, experience to be able to share that with them and see the excitement. Um, Talking with our redevelopment commissions between the three counties, the economic development directors, like you mentioned, Bob Gruey, Brian Gerald's, Jessica Potts, they're just phenomenal people and great to work with. Um, the Westgate Authority, certainly. Engaging with the state, you mentioned the legislature, right? So ways that, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be meeting with David Adams, new Secretary of Commerce, who's just down here this past week, the governor. So, really working to continue to advocate for WestGate and Crane, at the state level, right? And with our partners there in Indianapolis and beyond. And then, just earlier today, I was talking with John, John Ferenczi with Purdue Research Foundation, and, about how we can, bring together some key partners, post-secondary ed, Ivy Tech, certainly with the amazing work that they're doing to support, the IPIF and some of Kratos's efforts, right? So, it's just different. Every day's different. So,
let's talk a little bit about growth.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that last week we actually had a ribbon cutting here, groundbreaking of a company called Kratos Defense. If you haven't seen it, it's been all over the place, so hopefully you've seen it. But they won a $100 million contract, I think it is, out of NSWC.
Yeah.
And I think that building, I want to say it was about a $50 million, or it's going to be a $50 million investment when everything's all over. Or something close to that. Close to that. So that's a big deal for us. And
Absolutely.
The infrastructure, that was one thing I wanted to kind of just touch base with a little bit was, we talk about the developable acres, we talk about the companies that are coming in here, and I'm not sure that we were real prepared as a tech park to take on some of those types of industries. Obviously there had been in the discussions far along before this, hypersonics and microelectronics. But having the interest level that we've had here, the companies that are coming here, takes a lot of different infrastructure than what we currently have in place. So Bryant has been very instrumental in trying to get that funding in place so that we can make things like this happen here.
Yeah.
So can you? There are a lot of other things I think that are in the works, and I know some of them you can't talk about.
Sure.
But can you just discuss a little bit about some of the other opportunities that are going to happen here in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, one, we're seeing some amazing work. And again, I've said that a lot, but I can't say it enough about, what our partners at NSA Crane, NSBC Crane, CAAA are doing. But really in kind of, there's a lot of energy, no pun intended, in like the testing space, right? Microelectronics testing and, radiation hardened microelectronics, all of that. So, we have several projects that are kind of in that space. You have, Amentum is doing some great work in that space. I know, Kelly was, I think, was she
Kelly
the
was here.
first?
Kelly was the first.
Yeah,
Yes, she was.
on
Yes, she
this
was.
series, and so they're doing amazing work in that space, investing big, doubling down, in the technology park. You've got CACI, or I think as Kirk mentioned, CACI,
depending
right?
on
Yeah,
when you came into the organization.
that's right.
I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's right.
Yeah. And people who want office space, right? I mean, he had mentioned that we're constantly being asked throughout the tech park, is there any space available? Is there any space available? And the answer is not right now, right? I mean, we continue to say that, but we always say it's coming,
Yeah.
we have this coming. So so that's a great thing.
Yeah.
What would you say that has been one of your biggest accomplishments so far, in the sense of, I mean, again, you've only been here 2 years, and a lot of it's been kind of background work, educational work on trying to educate all the stakeholders and everybody, kind of the story behind what can be, what is going to be. But what do you think has been your biggest accomplishment, or USTF's biggest accomplishment so far?
Yeah.
And it could be just as easy as you've developed an organization and you have hired someone someone to help take on that task. But
no, it's I would say the answer is going to be much different, right, in a few years.
Yes.
As we continue to build the foundation and that jumping off point. But I would say, in these first couple years, at least since I've been in this role, I would say one of the items that I'm most proud of is just the level of collaboration that we've seen between the three counties, which, as you kind of alluded to, has not always been the case, right? There's been some, challenging times with WestGate, because it's working in a team, right? Regardless of whether you are, it's in an office, it's on a sports team of some sort, with your church, with your like whatever it is, or working with your two adjacent counties on a tri-county technology park in the defense tech space, right? Like whatever it is, there are challenges in working with a team. Obviously, there are benefits to be able to leverage one another's strengths and, have the somewhat be great. I guess work towards something greater than the sum of your parts, right? I mean, there's so. But I would say one of our biggest accomplishments, USTF, has been, it's taken some time, but getting the counties to really realize, hey, and understand, that this new organization, sometimes with our rural communities, when you have someone new come in, it's like, what are they trying to do? So, and that's anywhere. It's any rural community. It's any community for that matter.
And we're outside of the counties, so it's not like we're in the middle of them, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it's hard sometimes for them to understand what benefit they are going to get from it, right? And immediate benefit, I think. So.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head that WestGate's really at the furthest extremes of the three counties, right? So it's oftentimes we're on our own little island up
it's
here.
Forgotten about, or they don't really know what.
Or there's just a disconnect, sometimes, and that's natural. Yes. Shoals, county seat in Martin County, Washington, and Bloomfield and Davies and Greene, respectively. It's 30-minute drive from Washington, about that from Shoals. Bloomfield's the closest, but there's still. So I think getting to that point where time has a way of working on relationships and building trust at the foundation that hey, USTF is really here to help pull all these things together. And I think it's really refreshing to me now, being in the role for a couple years, that I feel like our three counties that are at the very core of this, right? Like if it were not for them, we wouldn't be here.
Yes.
If it were not for those initial actions, but getting to the point where they're saying, okay, hey, Bryant, the USTF team, they're advocating for Davies, Martin, and Greene counties. That's I feel like that gives me a personal sense of accomplishment, because then from then on, and it has been the case, things get so much easier, right? When you finally again, in any organization, when you build your team, then you're really able to, climb that tall mountain that's that's standing in front of you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Unfortunately, it's hard. Sometimes you've gotta take that time to educate
yeah.
and explain to some of these organizations of what the end goal is,
Hmm.
and we all should be with the same mission.
Yeah.
We all may play different parts, but our same mission should be. So then we come together. And like you said, I think that this is the time period where I've never seen the counties work as well
Yeah.
as everybody's been working together, collaborating together. I think
Yeah.
everyone sees what this is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. So, in saying that, and again, you've only been here 2 years, but you worked on some large projects in Davies County and Rushville area. So, what do you think 5 to 10 years from now the tech park is going to look like?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, again, I mean, when you look at the master plan, it's certainly, that time horizon is beyond, 5 to 10 years, right? I mean, it takes time. What you're doing here, is building a community from the ground up, right? So 5 to 10 years from now, I would say, one, Westgate will look very different, incredibly different. I think 6 months from now, it's going to look very different, right? You have, the payload integration facility that's going to be up. It's going to be a 60,000 square foot building where they are working on some of the most sophisticated hypersonic systems across the globe, right? You're going to have the Engineering Collaboration Center, or EC2, which is the former SEIC building, one of the first buildings within the park one of the first buildings built within the park, but really one of the first that's undergoing a complete renovation, right?
Yes.
And our partners there at Strongbox Commercial are leading that up, and along with all of these other projects, really, right? They're a key partner
and looking to do more.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, I think that'll be different because you're going to have the Mock TV program, Mock TV 2.0. It's going to be based there. You're going to have a lot of collaboration. I would say even more so out here in the park between the Navy, between the Army, the Joint Hypersonics Transition Office, and our private sector partners, right? Kudos to NSWC Crane for investing in this space, but certainly in these other spaces as well. They've taken the lead on that, and really, to the extent that they can, one, very much believing in their home, right, which is this area, but then doubling down in it with the amazing work that they're doing. So, and then, from the testing capabilities that we are going to offer to our private and public sector partners, where we're going to be attracting folks from across the nation to come and test their components, right? That is an absolute requirement, and thank the Lord, that's a requirement, right? We want to make sure that the systems we're using work 100% of the time, right? So I think those are just some of those, kind of keystone projects that we're going to see. And then beyond that, certainly the support businesses as well, right? I'm going to be thrilled when we have some, restaurants and food service, coffee shop. I keep working on David, with Zach's.
We have Zach's Creamery in here at the WestGate Academy. If you don't know that yet, so
Zach Graber, if you're watching, we want you
there's
to.
A plug for you.
That's right. Yes. We'll show you the first retail space that we have here, right? But yes. So I think you're definitely we're seeing a lot of that pick up right now. There's a lot of excitement that I'm seeing from those support businesses that are really these developments that we've been talking about are catching their eye, right? This place is important, and these things are going to happen. So I think we're going to see that, and then the park project that I mentioned, we'll be able to use that. I mean, I think it's going to be a very, very different and dynamic research environment.
A lot of opportunities. So, and I think just a couple things I want to mention is that I think if I read things correctly and understand things correctly, which may not be always the case, but the companies that are coming in here, the hypersonics and microelectronics and the radiation testing facilities. It seems like they all actually need some of those adjacent technologies to work together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, which is amazing to me. It's not just hypersonics and microelectronics. They'll be working together in some capacity and the testing facilities.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting to me to see how all of these companies that are coming in need the support of those other companies that are coming in to either produce what they're wanting to produce or manufacture what they want to manufacture. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, just to add to that, no, you're spot on, because I think, in addition to those anchor facilities like you mentioned, you're going to see a ton of interest from those suppliers, right?
Yes.
Or those secondary businesses that are very close partners that they have a symbiotic relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I think you're going to see a lot of that. Heck, we're experiencing that now,
Yes.
So yeah, that's a great point, Samantha. Yeah.
Okay. So the tech park's only so big, right? We talked about that a little bit. So are there boundary levels that we are going to reach at some point?
Yeah.
And if we do, are there early discussions of what happens then?
Yeah. No, that's something I feel like I'm thinking more and more about, right? Like, every day as we start to continue to see more interest in the park. I would say I would make a couple points. That one, these larger anchor facilities that we're starting to get traction on now, right? Those are larger lot type developments. At first, you take a look at the Indiana Payload Integration Facility, IPIF, and Kratos work there. That's it's on a 23-acre tract there, but there's the ability to grow beyond that. But I would say it sits on, I'm guessing, maybe about 6 to 8 acres. The other testing facility mentioned is on about the same, about 26 acres, but again sits on a fraction of that. So they have the opportunity to grow as the park continues to grow and these facilities get built, they're expanded upon, whatnot. I do believe we're going to hit a point kind of in that market, right? As we talked about the market hitting that right, and in comparison to other research parks, technology parks, where you start to see smaller lot development, more density, right?
Yes.
That's fundamental to the master plan. Is, hey, in our rural communities, we have an abundance of land, and we tend to think building out as opposed to up, right? But if you go to your more, like urban cores, that your downtowns of communities, the most efficient use of real estate is really to go up, right?
Yes.
So, now, does that mean you're going to see skyscrapers at WestGate? Probably not, But are you going to see smaller lot development that is more dense, that is taking advantage of more vertical real estate development as opposed to growing out? Yeah. And I think that
makes sense.
That's a critical component actually to how we reach that vision for the technology park, and having that dynamic innovation space, innovation district, like you see at Research Triangle and
a little more diversified companies potentially that can come in. So that's good. That's good. Okay, so I think we've touched on a lot of things. I know the one thing that everybody wants to see up here are restaurants and parks and retail, and it's moving in that direction, right? It's moving. I mean, we do have housing, the WestGate homes over here in Scotland. So if you haven't checked those out, you need to check those out because they're very, very nice, very nice, and hear a lot of good things about them. You talked about the bringing in different people, the new supply chain people, or that are going to have to help these anchor industries. So we do have a First Tuesday event, which I think a lot of you might be aware of, but that's where a lot of these new people are coming out.
Yeah,
they're wanting to understand how they can be part of this ecosystem. So I would encourage you to continue to just keep watching what is going on up here, become aware of what's going on, Any other thoughts or comments on, so a couple of things that we touched base a little bit on was workforce.
Mhm.
You talked about you and us at Purdue Research Foundation getting together and kind of building a symposium of some kind to talk about what the workforce looks like. Because these companies that are coming up here will need that.
Oh my
We're
gosh.
going to need, thousands of people potentially at some point.
Yeah.
And so we need to do that. But also, one thing that I want to mention is that the tech park itself has really just been off of 558. You've seen a little green sign that says WestGate Crane Technology Park. In the near future, we're going to have what?
Yeah, we're gonna have some new, nice, pretty big too, right? They're gonna be sizable gateway signs coming into the park that are gonna have our nice new branding, that are gonna give you more of a sense of, oh, hey, I'm actually in Westgate,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I feel like a lot of folks, I'm sure you get this all the time. I know I do, where when they say Westgate, they think of the Westgate Academy, right?
All the time.
Which is the hub, right? I mean, this is that central space for the park, but the park is just that, right? It's hundreds of acres,
Yes.
beyond. So it'll be nice to see this.
It will be nice. It'll be a great addition for people to see what is off of
Yeah.
the highway there and maybe
Yeah.
drive through just to see what's even in here. So
Yeah. Well, and just with that, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that's a huge thanks to, I would say, two organizations. One, ROI and their Ready communities, Ready with a Y. They're also Ready with an I, of, the IDC's program leading that up. But this is their Ready Communities funding that was originally from the Lilly Endowment, right? Investing in ROI. So that's how that's being funded. And the Davies County Economic Development Corporation, so Bob Crewy, their executive director, has kind of been our project manager, has been leading that up. It's a grant that was awarded to them several years ago. So, yeah, kudos to them.
Yes. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited to see something lit up, looks nice.
Yeah.
Looks like you're entering into a technology park.
That's right.
Which is what we've been to since.
That's right.
Been through since. So, well, thank you for joining us today, Bryant, on
Yeah.
Contractor Connect. I really appreciate him taking the time. We are also, I didn't mention, we are in his office. So we changed a little bit of format this week. We aren't on a big stage. We decided to be a little bit more informal and be in Bryant's. Plus, it's right next to mine, so I can just walk over a little bit. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you or understand more about USTF, or even has comments, suggestions, or investments, maybe wants to, what's the best way that you recommend them getting a hold of you or seeing what the opportunities are?
Sure. Yeah. So you can find us online. Go to westgatecrane.org. My contact information is there. Reach out anytime. Would love to chat with you. You could also find us on LinkedIn. So reach out that way. But yeah, no, just really thank you, Samantha. It's great. It's great to see you in Purdue really like highlighting, our contractors. It was amazing to start with Amentum. They're just a great group. And so really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing and the collaboration that we have. None of this could be possible without working with you all and our other partners.
It is exciting to see what is coming next. So the intent of the series is to showcase a different partner within the defense ecosystem here within the WestGate Crane Technology Park that supports the growth and advancement of the Naval Support Activity Center and the defense industry. So for more information on the WestGate Academy or USTF, you can go to westgate-academy.com or westgatecrane.org. And we hope you join us next time on Contractor Connect. Until then, see you soon.